The Assembly is now in session. Assemblymember Holden notices the absence of a quorum. The Sergeants-at-Arms will prepare the chamber and bring in the absent members. The clerk will call the roll.
Ashajian, Alejo, Allen, Baker, Bigelow, Bloom, Bonilla, Bonta, Bro, Brown, Burke, Calderon, Campos, Chang, Chow, Chavez, David Chu, Kansan Chu, Cooley, Cooper, DeBobne, Daly, Daly, Dodd, Eggman, Frazier, Gaines, Gallagher, Christina Garcia, Eduardo Garcia, Gatto, Gibson, Gomez, Gonzalez, Gordon, Gray, Grove, Hadley, Harper, Hernandez, Holden, Irwin, Jones, Jones Sawyer, Kim, Lackey, Levine, Linder, Lopez, Lowe, Mainshine, Mathis, Mays, McCarty, Medina, Melendez, Mullen, Nazarian, Obernolte, O'Donnell, Olson, Patterson, Quirk, Rendon, Ridley Thomas, Rodriguez, Salas, Santiago, Steinorth, Stone, Thurman, Ting, Wagner, Waldron, Weber, Wilk, Williams, Wood. Madam Speaker.
I'd like to ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. Colleagues, if I could ask folks if you could take your desks. Today's prayer will be offered by Father Papademos. Father Papademos.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, they say it takes just 6 seconds to make a first impression. And in fact, many times we look at someone and instantly decide if we like them or not. But you, Lord, have told us to look beyond the surface and to look at the other person's heart. Help us, Lord, to look for the good in others, to find some common ground, and to look for what you will do through the relationships in our life. Amen.
I'd like to ask our guests and visitors to please remain standing for the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Steinorth for the pledge.
Please join me as we salute our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, January 21st, 2016. The Assembly met at 9:30 a.m. Honorable Tony G. Atkins, Speaker of the Assembly presiding. Chief Clerk
Mr. Holden moves and Mr. May seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentation of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. We're going to move now to motions and resolutions. Absences today for personal business, Assemblymember Mathis. And at this time, we'd like to move to procedural motions. I'd like to recognize our majority leader for your motions. Mr. Holden, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 118 and allow Speaker Atkins to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection, that request is granted.
I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 and allow Assembly Members Brown and Cooper to speak on adjourned memory today.
Without objection, that request is granted.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 69 and allow the following bills to be eligible on third reading today. File Item 9, Assembly Bill 708, Jones-Sawyer. File Item 10, Assembly Bill 620, Hernandez.
Without objection, such shall be the order.
Mr. Speaker, ACR 104, Rodriguez is at the Assembly desk. At the request of the author, I move to rescind the action whereby ACR 104 was passed to the Senate on January 27, 2016, and to return the bill to the third reading file.
The clerk will so note.
At the request of the author, please send file item 12, Assembly Bill 710 Brown, to the inactive file.
The clerk will note.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move to guest introductions. We have one set of guest introductions today. I'd like to recognize Madam Speaker for her introduction.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Mr. Mainshine, who is on his way back, and behalf of all of our San Diego members, I want to welcome some distinguished visitors today. With us today are San Diego City Council President Sherry Leitner, Council President Pro Tem Marty Emerald, and City Council Member Myrtle Cole. Also joining us is our city's independent budget analyst, Andrea Tevlin, who Brian and I were happy to, as the government changed form in San Diego, to make this brilliant hire. So we're thrilled to see them and a number of staff members today. And on this rare day, there are as many people from San Diego on the floor as there are from Los Angeles. So please join me in welcoming them.
Colleagues, at this time, we're going to proceed to business on the daily file. Colleagues, we're going to proceed with business on the daily file, second reading. There is no second reading at this time. Concurrence and second amendments. We're going to pass and retain file item 1. And moving to file item 2, AB 21, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 21 by Assemblymember Wood and others, an act relating to medical marijuana, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Dr. Wood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As you know, the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act was passed by this body last year and signed by the governor in October. The act created a requirement for cities and counties to enact cultivation ordinances prior to March 1st or relinquish that to the state. Could I go quiet?
Colleagues, please. Dr. Wood.
Since the MMRSA was signed, cities and counties have rushed to enact bans, placeholder bans on cultivation activities. But the MMRSA was never intended to have the March 1st date. It was essentially a drafting error. So in some local jurisdictions, as counties and cities have moved, they are moving towards straight bans of all medical marijuana activities, and this is impacting patients' access to medical marijuana as well as primary caregivers. Given the upcoming date and the challenges it has caused for cities and counties, I introduced urgency legislation to repeal that date and correct the drafting error in the MMRSA. My colleagues and I want to allow cities and counties to have thoughtful discussions about the policies around medical marijuana that might be appropriate for their community, and encourage people not to place these placeholder bans on their communities. AB 21 also addresses another drafting error in the MMRSA regarding patient and primary caregiver access to medical marijuana. I've worked with all of the stakeholders, which includes the ACLU, the Drug Policy Alliance, the League of California Cities, the California Police Chiefs, California's CSAC, RCRC, to come up with compromise language that we all agree on. This compromise ensures that patients and primary caregivers have access to their medical marijuana while maintaining local control for cities and counties. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
We have a number of members up on this. Ms. Bonilla, you're recognized.
I rise in strong support of this measure. We had a hearing a joint hearing between health, business and professions, and ag. It's very important that we get the information out and that all of us carry this information back to our communities. Many of us come from city government or county government, and there's really been a great alarm that they were going to lose their authority at the local level to regulate marijuana cultivation. And so ban after ban has been put in place. Up to almost, I think we're at 100 local governments have banned the cultivation. Now, this is a step backwards. This bill addresses the concern. It says there was a drafting error. We're correcting it. There is no need for alarm. And so I just rise in support and ask every member in the House to carry the message back home that if cities are considering a ban, they can simply say that their ban would sunset upon the governor's signature of AB 21, and then we'll be right where we need to be, not only for the implementation of these important regulations, but what we don't want to see is that there will be non-compliance with the regulations that we're trying to do here through the state. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to support this bill, but also take this message back to your local government so that they don't have to continue to be alarmed. There is a way for them to be assured that this bill will be signed and it will be corrected. I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Lackey, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Speaker, members. I'm rising in support of this important measure from my colleague from the Emerald Triangle. AB 21 corrects a drafting error from AB 243 that undermines local control. Passing this measure today will ensure that local governments have the time needed to develop ordinances that best meet the needs of their community. This measure is completely supported by the California Police Chiefs and other local government groups, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Cooley, you're recognized.
Colleagues, I also want to rise. I want to commend my colleague from Healdsburg for this bill, for moving with alacrity to address this issue. It's not just a drafting error. The language in the bill was internally inconsistent. Throughout this process, the EPIC package passed last fall put a spotlight on the need for maintaining access to medical marijuana for those allowed to use it under California's Proposition 215. There's an advisory group that is designed to address that issue purposefully. So this date actually is inconsistent, out of harmony with the bill as passed, that historic measure. And it is correct that by the legislature passing this, sending it down to the governor, we preserve local control. We align the total package with the policy that exists in the state since 1996, supporting access and availability for those entitled by law to it. And it does allow cities which have enacted bans, frankly, as self-defense to ensure they did not lose power, to back away from those. And I know within the League of Cities, there are a variety of sound regulatory ordinances suitable for large cities, medium cities, small cities that are in circulation to kind of support this movement back from this banning activity. So it's an extremely timely, constructive bill, and I just wish my colleague from Healdsburg joy in the quick movement of this bill this month. Very, very outstanding.
Mr. Gallagher, you're recognized.
Yes, question of the author, and my question regards the local control issue. I know...
Without objection, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question for me is, as I understand it, we're correcting this drafting error that puts a deadline of March 1st in the legislation. However, we're still preserving the rights of locals to control cultivation up to and including banning cultivation if that local jurisdiction decides to, because some of my jurisdictions have actually already done that, and some may decide to do that in the future. I just want to ensure that that option is still available to locals if they decide to do that.
Dr. Wood?
Yes, that option is available. My concern with the March 1st deadline was that these bans were happening without input really from communities and stakeholders. They were just knee-jerk reaction to the deadline. So I would hope that as jurisdictions move forward, they actually have these substantive conversations with their community and come up with policies that are actually right for their community and the people that they serve, rather than this knee-jerk reaction towards a ban. But you're absolutely right. A ban, a city or county could do that, and if that's the will of a city or county, after a good, robust public policy discussion around the issue, then they have every right to do that.
Mr. Gallagher?
Okay. Well, on my own time, I can support this measure. I just wanted to ensure that and it's been confirmed by the author, that the intent here is to preserve that local control, including giving counties and local jurisdictions the ability to do bans on cultivation. Thank you.
Mr. Bonta, you're recognized. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Grove, you're back up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question of the author.
Without objection.
Thank you. I just would like to reiterate what my colleague said, because our colleague from Benicia said that this, in her comments, that this bill would just extend the local authority and stuff that's in place now until the governor puts his signature on AB 21. So does that mean that the local control bans that are in place now would be expired as of the governor's signature on this piece of legislation based on her comments?
Dr. Wood?
No, existing bans would not be expired, but I would encourage cities and counties to go back and revisit those bans and actually repeal the bans and have real substantive discussions around the policies that might be best for their community.
Ms. Grove.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bonta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As a proud joint author of AB 21, I rise in strong support of this measure. And as we know from last year when we were on the floor together towards the end of the session, we passed some very important bills regarding the future of medical cannabis regulation in our state. As we enter that new era, it's essential that we provide our local jurisdictions with the time that they need to engage in the deliberative process and the time that they need to create thoughtful and effective ordinances for commercial medical cannabis activity. And by eliminating the March 1 deadline, AB 21 provides that time and allows local cities and counties the ability to craft regulations that are appropriate for their particular needs. AB 21 also protects patient access to the medicine that they are recommended by their physicians, thereby helping improve the health of Californians throughout the state. And I just want to thank the author for working so closely with the stakeholders. I know that this process to get here today wasn't always easy, but you worked with all the stakeholders and got their input. And as we did last year with MRSA, we were able to get to a place where all stakeholders are bought in and on board. So thank you for your leadership, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote, colleagues.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion, Dr. Wood, you may close.
Just thank my co-authors, my joint authors, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 65, noes 0. The Senate amendments are concurred in. With regard to our reconsideration items at file items 6 and 7, we're going to pass and retain, as we're going to continue for reconsideration. With regards to file item 8 in third reading, we're going to pass and retain. At this time, we're going to go to file item 9, AB 708. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 708 by Assemblymember Jones Sawyer and others, an act relating to consumer product safety.
Mr. Jones Sawyer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 708 will require a manufacturer of cleaning products to list its products' ingredients on the manufacturer's website, allowing workers and families to make safe decisions about what products to use. There are no federal or state regulations regarding the listing of ingredients in cleaning products, yet every day Californians handle and inhale these chemicals, some of which are allergenic or toxic or prolonged exposure. In my district and in many others, exposed persons include working-class mothers and fathers who work as home care workers, hotel maids, auto workers, and janitors. Exposed Californians also include school children who, according to the state's Department of Public Health, faced increased rates of asthma due to chemicals from cleaning products in the air. This bill is not unnecessary. It is not costly. It is not a threat to trade secrets. AB 708 is about safety, not secrets. First of all, this bill has never asked for the disclosure of specific ingredient volumes, or any formula composition that qualify as trade secrets. All it calls for is a list of product ingredients on a manufacturer's website. That's it. Just a list of ingredients online and in no particular order. Secondly, as far as cleaning products are concerned, anyone can merely hire a certified laboratory to reverse engineer a product to a level where it can be reproduced by anyone. Quite frankly, the only ones left in the dark about the chemicals inside cleaning products are us, the consumers of such products. In addition, in the European Union, cleaning product manufacturers are already required to list ingredients from cleaning products on both the product's label and on the website. So this is not some unheard of idea. Finally, why I am pushing for disclosed chemicals with fragrances. According to our California Department of Public Health, fragrances in cleaning products are actually a combination of many chemicals, some of which contain ingredients that have been associated with dizziness, cancer, endocrine disruption, and asthma. In fact, the term fragrance, which is currently found on ingredient list of some most scented cleaning products, masks about over 3,000 chemicals, including allergens and reproductive toxins. Let's be clear, this bill is not intended to accuse or insinuate that any particular company's product is harmful. It is simply about transparency to the public, and companies need to come clean. Business owners and school administrators should know what is in their cleaning products to keep their workplaces and schools safe. Moreover, all of us as consumers have a right to know what is in our cleaning products so that we can make healthy and responsible buying decisions. Colleagues, this is an issue that is ultimately impacting all of us, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 All members vote. Who desire to vote? Mr. John Sawyer, what's your pleasure? All members vote. Who desire to vote? All members vote. Who desire to vote? All members vote. Who desire to vote?
Pass or reject. Put on call. On call.
Mr. John Sawyer moves the call. This item is on call.